Hello and welcome to the Yashi Show podcast. My name is Yasmin Madani, and my loved ones call me Yashi, and you can too. I welcome you to join me today for episode 2, which is about people pleasing. Please note that this will be a two-part series, and we are covering part 1 of people pleasing today. I get asked why I wanted to create a podcast. And one of the primary reasons is just that I have lacked so much self awareness in my own life. And now that I see the benefits in how it impacts my relationships with others and also the relationship with myself, I wanted to offer and share some of this learning with you all as you go along on your journey of self discovery. When I take a deeper look at a topic like people pleasing, I always just thought I was being nice and always thought that being nice and agreeable for the most part was a good thing. And so people pleasing didn't seem like a really big deal to me. But upon learning more and actually diving deeper into some of the root causes and reasons, I was surprised to learn that we sometimes use this behavior to protect ourselves from feeling the deep emotions that lie within each of us that make us feel uncomfortable, scared, and insecure. And these things totally resonate with me personally, by the way, because even as a child, I can remember myself trying to be nice and doing things that others wanted, such as elderly people in the family or people in positions of hierarchy, and just following the order of expectations and having some understanding of what my place is and what I needed to do to appear as responsible and reliable and even to be likable. So that's something I learned quickly as a child. And I continued to practice this even in adulthood at my workplace and with the larger community and even in friend circles. I just wasn't aware that this is what I was doing because it was such an automatic behavior for me many times. And I just thought this is how I'm supposed to be. And by following expectations that were silently or verbally laid out, or modeled by others that were also people pleasing, I thought I was following the rules and that it was the right thing to do. But the deeper question that I'm asking myself nowadays is who was it actually right for? Was it right for me or only for the other person? And so this is where things get tricky and where we need to become more aware of ourselves. Remember, this season we are exploring and asking questions about ourselves and learning to reflect on our behaviors so that we can grow and develop our self awareness skills. I've come across so much information and personal learning about people pleasing, so I've decided that we're going to be covering this topic in 2 podcasts. Today, we will talk about people pleasing and what it is, why so many of us do it, and how to start noticing it without judging yourself. If you've ever said yes when your body was screaming no, or if you've ever felt guilty for resting, or if you've ever worried that being yourself might make people leave, then these next 2 episodes are for you. For me personally, I've been a people pleaser for a really long time. And I've really worked on trying to stop practicing this behavior now for the most part. And I try and catch myself in the moment when I find myself doing it. But for a very long time and for a large part of my life, I operated from the role of being a people pleaser. And over the years, I've gotten to know a lot of other people pleasers. And I'd say most of the people pleasers that I know are women mostly. And I think it's partly just something that our gender role and culture teaches us that if we're pleasing people, then we're doing something right. Because that's what our gender specific roles, such as being mothers, daughters, sisters, wives, daughter in laws, etc., has always typically and traditionally expected us to do. If you're a highly empathetic person like I am, then you are constantly looking at the needs of other people. And sometimes when you can't see your own needs or you don't understand the concept of boundaries, like I didn't for myself, then people pleasing can become a really bad habit when you don't know where and how to draw the lines. Research shows that people pleasing behavior usually comes from a pretty human place, but a few big reasons show up over and over. Some of these reasons include wanting to be liked or accepted because our brains are wired for connection. And for some people, pleasing others feels like the safest way to belong, sometimes because of the fear of conflict. Rejection and saying no can feel risky. It can feel like it might lead to anger and disappointment or even abandonment. Another reason is there could be early conditioning that took place. For example, if someone grew up getting praised for being good, easy, or helpful, then they learned that love equals meeting other people's needs. Also, low self worth factors, such as when you don't fully believe that your needs matter, then it just becomes easier to put everyone else's needs first. I think I did that a lot, both of those things, while growing up and even in adulthood, and I wasn't able to truly understand that my needs mattered. I just put my needs aside. Not only did I not have the courage to voice my own needs and wants, but setting them aside was easier because saying them out loud felt selfish. There can also be empathy overload because some people are very tuned into others' emotions and feel responsible for fixing or soothing them. And I have always known this to be a skill for me personally that I had. And I would many times prioritize helping others with their emotions and regulating their emotions and disappointments, even when I lacked the capacity to actually do it. And surprisingly, people pleasing can also be a form of control because pleasing can be a way to manage outcomes. So it could look something like if I keep everyone else happy here, then nothing bad will happen. Let's take a look at a few examples together and reflect on the ones that might be relatable for you. The first example is saying no and the fear of anger. So it kind of goes something like this, and I'm sure it will be familiar for you just as it has been for me. You're already tired, your body knows it needs rest, but someone asks for help. They ask you for help. Again, you consider saying no, and immediately your mind jumps ahead that they'll be annoyed, they'll snap at me, they'll think I'm unreliable. So your focus becomes their reaction to your response. And maybe you've seen that anger before. You know when you get the sigh or the sharp tone or the withdrawal. So you say yes, not because you want to, but because anger feels like a rupture. And by that, I mean that in psychology, this rupture represents the tearing of the connection or trust in the relationship, which is often caused by harsh words, misunderstandings, or unmet needs. And keeping the peace feels safer to you than being honest. In this example, people pleasing is about avoiding emotional backlash. Let's take a look at a second example. And this one is looking at disappointment as a threat to worth. This time, let's say a friend or family member asks you to show up in a way that you can't right now. I'm sure many of you can relate to this. You imagine saying no, and what you picture isn't conflict, but rather it's disappointment. Their face is falling, their energy is changing, the sense that you let them down. And inside yourself, the disappointment turns into a story. I failed. I'm not enough. I should have tried harder. So then you overextend, you show up anyway, not because it's right for you, but because their disappointment feels like a judgment on your value. When I think back at how many times I've done things when I didn't have the capacity to, just to make others not feel disappointed, I feel sad because I know I didn't take care of myself in those moments. It's not that I didn't want to help my friends and family. I always wanted to help friends and family and anyone I can. But I have had to learn to look at what my capacity is at the time. And the fact that I never even considered that and was giving from a place of exhaustion and depletion makes me feel really sad to think that I treated myself that way so many times before. Let's continue looking at a few more examples together. I find it super helpful to better understand myself when I have tangible scenarios to reflect upon, because then I can really look and check in on my own level of self-awareness and personal growth. Okay, this next example is about silence that feels like abandonment. This one is quieter and often deeper. You set a boundary, you don't over explain, you don't fix it, and then there's silence. I know you know this one because we all do it or have panicked about it at some point after doing it. It's when you keep checking your phone, but there's no text message from them and there's no reassurance of any kind. You get no immediate response whatsoever. So then you're panicking. Your body actually reacts before your mind does. So you might have a tight chest. You might have racing thoughts, and you pull to reach out on your own then and smooth things over, because the fear you have isn't just that they're busy and they're not responding to you. The fear that you have is that they're pulling away. And there's all the thinking and self-doubt in yourself that I've messed this up and I might lose them in this moment. So I better do something really quickly to patch it up and fix this immediately. In this example, saying no feels like it might cost you the relationship. So self-abandonment rushes in to restore closeness. There's one more example I'd like to share, and this one can show up early in your life. It's childhood conditioning that's showing up in the present. You learned early on that saying no had consequences. And maybe if you said no, someone withdrew affection. Someone got cold or critical if you said no. Someone told you that you were being selfish for saying no. Or someone made you feel like a burden. So now, even as an adult, your body remembers this when you consider saying no. Your system, your nervous system isn't responding to this specific moment in time. It's responding to an old one. And that's why the fear feels so intense. It's not imagined, it's learned behavior. And let's go over an example to see if it's relatable for you. Imagine you're in a meeting at work and your manager says, "Can we talk after this?" Instantly, your chest tightens. Your stomach drops, your mind races, and you're thinking, I messed up, I'm in trouble, I'm about to be criticized or maybe even fired. But in reality, nothing bad has happened. Your manager's tone was neutral. The situation is ordinary. So then why does the fear feel so intense for you? Because your nervous system isn't responding to this particular meeting, it's responding to an older moment. Maybe being called into the principal's office as a kid, or being told we need to talk by a parent whose tone meant punishment. Back then, that phrase did predict shame, anger, or rejection, and so your brain learned that this kind of phrase equals danger. That learning wired itself into your body. So now when you hear something similar, your system reacts before your thinking brain can evaluate it. The fear isn't imagined, it's learned. Your body is protecting you by using an old template, even though the current situation may not match the past. And this is how trauma and conditioning works. The key insight is that when the reaction feels really disproportionately intense, it's often a sign that your body is responding to memory, not just the present moment. In all of these examples, the risk isn't just rejection. The risk is anger that feels unsafe. It's disappointment that feels like failure. It's distance that feels like abandonment. So then people pleasing becomes a protection for you because the connection that you once required actually made you give yourself up. But the tricky part is that people pleasing can work in the short term because there's less tension and there's more approval. But in the long term, it often leads to resentment, burnout, or losing touch with exactly what you want. Join me again next week on part 2 of people pleasing, and we'll look at the difference between people pleasing in the short term versus the long term. I encourage you to reflect on what we've learned today, and even perhaps if I can persuade you to take a journal and write some notes down for yourself, that would be awesome. I've tried to create these mini lesson podcasts so that they are just the right duration and length where you can digest the information in small segments and effectively apply your learning and reflection about yourself to your daily life. I do believe all the answers lie within each one of us, but it is up to each one of us to do the emotional work necessary to better understand ourselves. When we can do this, we learn very quickly how to have more meaningful relationships with others, and especially with ourselves, which is so joyful and fulfilling. Feel free to go to my website at theyashishow.com to sign up for my newsletter there. Every now and then, I'll try and share out some important points and resources with you whenever I can. Remember, my name is Yashi, and I believe in you. Hope you'll join me again next week on The Yashi Show. Until then, be kind to others and also remember to be kind to yourself.